All right, guys. So today I am so happy as the first interview for the Neuromantic channel to have with me my friend Michael, who is way at the top of the list in terms of people whose stories I think you will enjoy hearing and also get a lot out of hearing. He's got a really relatable story. The two of us met when we were in treatment down in Florida at the height of the Florida Shuffle. We were at this facility called Palm Partners, and we'll talk more about that later. But this must have been in 2014, 2015. And so we got to know each other then, and we went our separate ways geographically afterward, but we've kept in touch ever since. We've both been in and out of relapse and recovery in terms of our opioid addiction. Arcs that we followed, but Michael's got a really interesting story. First of all, because of how he got into addiction, there was this pipeline of extreme sports to opioid scripts to opioid addiction. It's also got some interesting mental health background that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to in terms of bipolar disorder and some other issues that many addicts experience. He's had at least two very significant relationships in relapse and recovery, including one with his current fiance, who is his soulmate. So like to touch on that as well. And he has also worked in the treatment industry in terms of residential treatment support. And because of that, I thought he would be a really good person to discuss the corruption in that industry with. Because when I tell you guys, I've made videos about how the South Florida for-profit rehab scene was like absolutely almost unbelievably corrupt. I'm sure Michael will be able to weigh in on that, but it was a total crap show. So without further ado, this is my friend Michael, and we'll get right into it.
Hey, super stoked to be doing this. Obviously been doing the recovery thing for a long time now. 2014 was my first real effort at uh, any type of recovery that wasn't court ordered. Um, and it's been a long time since then, and there's been some failures and a lot of really great successes, and yeah, I'm just stoked to be doing this and talking with you today, Brian.
I have to remind myself since thank you again, and I have to remind myself since I'm the interviewer today to shut the heck up. But one of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because one of the reasons I started my YouTube channel and my blog was like because so few people with opioid addiction, it's like 1 to 3%, just sort of go to treatment and then move on and without maintenance stay clean for the rest of their lives. Like really, it's probably even lower than 1% who follow that path. So I wanted a channel and a blog to represent the stories of the chronic relapsers and the people for whom addiction is a little bit more cyclical, because those are the average opioid addicts, especially the ones who, like you and me, have long histories and severe histories of this problem. So again, I think your story is going to be a perfect illustration of that sort of experience of addiction. And I guess I'll get right into it, and I'll ask you a little bit about what was your family life like growing up? Your in terms of early childhood experiences. What do you remember, and what do you find significant?
Um, Kind of a fractured family situation. My uh mom and dad never got along from what I could remember. We won't go too deep into that, but dad was pretty much out of the picture by the time that I was a teenager. Moved to the other side of the state and just kind of uh did his own thing. Hasn't really been in my life much since. But I've always had a really good relationship with my mom and my sister and my stepdad. Also, really big players in my recovery and as support systems for me. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, we just, I don't want to say a normal Ohio family because, everybody's kind of got their own things going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing really too crazy as far as like a family dynamic. I was housed and cared for and, uh, fed well. And there was not an overabundance of love in my household, but me and my sister were very blessed for the upbringing that we grew up in.
Got it. No, that's a great overview. And in this next question, if you're not comfortable sharing, we'll shut it right down. So, and I don't mean asking about specific people in your family having specific problems, but I know I've told you, like, especially on my mom's side of the family, my family is absolutely riddled with addiction for like generations. Almost every male family member on that side of the family and some on the other side too has had some significant substance abuse problem. So again, without asking you to say this person suffered from that, is there addiction in your extended in nuclear family, or are you kind of an outlier with that?
I'm the anomaly.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'm definitely the 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 black sheep of the family. My sister was a little experimentative when we were younger, but yeah, she never got in trouble or got herself uh in any kind of hairy situations with any substances or any type of um hard drug use or anything like that. Um, but just one kind of like asterisk, I guess, on the family tree. There was a lot of mental health issues on my dad's side of the family. I guess
Okay.
he had a really rough home life, I guess, and um, his uh, I don't know the exact specifics to everything because we've never really had a conversation about it. But my both of my grandparents on that side of the family basically like drank themselves to cirrhosis, and um I don't know if I'm getting the details mixed up or not, but there was one death from uh I think pancreatitis, and as a result of alcoholism, and I believe that my grandmother on that side of the family committed suicide
Okay.
um before the liver cirrhosis could really take any kind of major uh deal in doing you know doing the deed for her, I guess.
And I absolutely hate to say it, but that is one of the worst ways to go. It's one of my fears because I've had hepatitis C, and that does permanent damage to your liver. And it's I can understand why someone faced with that might consider that as an option, but yeah, it's just brutal any way you cut it, I guess. So okay, so getting a picture of like significant mental health issues, at least on one side of the family in one generation. And I've also seen sometimes in families where addiction is not necessarily prevalent. Sometimes if there are a lot of other mental health issues, the people who are coping with their parents or grandparents' mental health issues, they turn to substances as a way to like buffer that, you know? So it's like you see a lot of non-addiction mental health issues in some families, and then surrounding those people who are really mentally ill, addicts develop because they found a way to sort of isolate themselves from all of the emotional strain and the unpredictability with substances, if that makes sense. So that really interests me because, as you know, your average addict does come from a family of addicts, but I've also met many people like you who are, anomalies, like you said. So I guess let's try to trace this forward in terms of how, in a family where substance abuse wasn't that in your face, you ended up on that path. Okay, so first of all, before I go there though, did you have like a favorite movie or a book or series growing up that you remember?
I always really liked Goodwill Hunting.
Boom.
That's like a number one favorite of mine as far as um I don't know, relatability, I guess. Just like, you know, somebody who's got basically like endless potential, but um they just can't get out of their own way. Uh and I don't know. It just really speaks to me, I guess.
That's an awesome way to put that. And I know many, many addicts would put themselves in that category. I always say, if you want to fall in love with humanity, go to rehab because, like, the ingenuity and the creativity and the camaraderie is like off the charts. You're seeing people at their absolute best. But, those same people 6 months later in the middle of relapse will be the last person on earth you would want to see or be around. So. That's a good way to describe that story, though. So, okay, so we're moving forward. You had what sounds like a pretty, the basics were satisfied in terms of your needs growing up, but as you said, it was a fractured family, and so I've talked to you about this a little bit in the past, just during our casual conversations. But so you had some early interest in like skateboarding and other extreme sports. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I was always on wheels from like age 11 all the way up until like my early 20s. And um yeah, that was like my release. I wasn't really friends with anybody who didn't skateboard or rollerblade. I had like a little crew of skater misfits that I ran around with, and got to travel like all over the place with, going from uh different skate spots here and there, to um like contest skating, to yeah, it was just like a whole lifestyle for me when I was younger, and it was pretty awesome, pretty fun. Um, but yeah, it takes a big toll on your body. Um, I had like 6 broken arms. Like I had broken my right wrist twice and my left wrist 4 times before I got a driver's license.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, one really important thing that I learned late in the game is like how to fall correctly. Like
Yeah.
like apparently I couldn't get that drilled into my head hard enough that like you don't try to catch yourself when you're falling, you just take it to the hip or to your butt cheek or like the shoulder, and you just tuck the limbs because yeah, bones snap. And I've had to go through a lot of. Luckily, I haven't had to have any major surgeries or like hardware put in. I had a knee surgery, 2 knee surgeries done, but they were pretty minor. They were just like orthoscopic.
Yeah.
But I had to have my left arm set twice, like yanked out and then like put back
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And that was pretty brutal.
Yeah. So it sounds like skating. I grew up in that Tony Hawk era too, and I remember kids it would almost be like a badge of honor if you got injured, right, with snowboarding or skating or whatever you were doing. It was like you were really in it then, right? So I remember that, and it sounds like for you it was like it was a social group kind of thing, right? In addition to other things. So outside of that, like in school, what kind of kid were you? Did you find it easy to connect with your peers, or how did you think of yourself in like middle school to early high school? Were you confident? Were you social, or how did you think about yourself?
Oh no, not at all. I had a really tough time, um, like socially and um just being able to connect with people, make friends. I was like very uh I put it as like oversensitive
Mhm.
from like a real young age, and that, I don't know, it just put like had a wall up between me and like the world around me, I guess. It I did not have a lot of friends through like elementary school, middle school, um and like what few friends that I did have through like high school, early high school years were mostly just people that I skated with, and like until like partying became like a factor, and then like my social circle grew a little bit just based on like that aspect. um
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I mean, you could take a lot of what you just said and apply it to my life. And especially later on in high school, I had this weird experience, where we're starting to choose people for senior superlatives, and a bunch of people nominated me for most popular, or whatever our school called that one, right? And I was like shocked because I'm thinking I don't really have any real friends. Like I was one of those kids who disappeared over the summer, and I felt I had very little true ability to connect with people completely honestly. But like in school, I was very social, and I guess was good at giving the impression that I was more social than I was outside of school. So I totally feel you there with the walls up, and I know that that's really common with people who go down the addictive path. So before we talk about those first opioid scripts, I have one more thing I'm trying to tie in here, okay? And that is early mental health stuff. Because I believe at some point you were diagnosed with ADHD and that was a misdiagnosis. Am I saying that properly now?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah, I was around like 7 years old when I was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and put on. Um, Initially, I believe I was on Ritalin. But like I had horrendous side effects to anything that they put me on. As a little kid, it was not a fun uh experience whatsoever. Being like forcibly placed on amphetamines. Basically, I had like chronic migraine headaches that I would get from, and uh like smell sensitive, like riding the school bus home would trigger like a horrific migraine. I would have crazy mood swings, irritability, um paranoia, uh just um yeah, I mean the list goes on. And that was what played like a big part in my like developing social skills from such a young age too. Like um yeah, it's hard to like, you know, make friends when you're like constantly having like mood swings or like episodes of like paranoia where like you basically you feel like everybody around you is like some kind of a hostile force working against you or
oh,
um
absolutely. I've seen it with some of the kids I've worked in my current role. It's like I've seen a kid who's 11 years old. I'm like, he's tweaking and he's so uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. I know what that state is like. And I'm like, God, to do that to such a young kid whose nervous system isn't developed yet for a medication that in the best studies sponsored by Big Pharma isn't more effective than active placebo, like healthy diet together with, yoga is wild to me. It is wild how overprescribed that was. And I wasn't someone who went down that path, but I had a cousin who was, and boy, does that use of amphetamine or Ritalin type drugs, boy, does that set you up for needing something like a downer or gravitating towards something like a downer. For other people, it's weed to help even out those migraines, those bits of paranoia, that sleeplessness and irritability, right? So
yeah.
so so man, does that all sort of like tie together? I can start to see what I think is like a simplified picture of all of this, and it almost seems like you're set up for it, like so many people. Eventually, when we talked earlier, you said eventually you were switched to a diagnosis of bipolar. Is that correct?
Pretty recently actually.
Okay. So and
It
that's
was like around the 2019 2020 time frame.
okay.
uh yeah, it was when I finally was given like a correct diagnosis and um uh medicated for it, and uh it a way that's actually like successful.
Yeah. And my gosh, if you're tending toward the hypomanic or the manic and they give you stimulants, especially again when your body is so young and responsive, they're going to be making all of those BP tendencies worse, you know? So like it's really that was a mess for you, dude. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
laughing, but like really that is so rough at such an early age. I'm not surprised. So if I can just backtrack a little bit. So you get these serious injuries and you get your first opioid scripts, right? What were they giving you? Were they giving you hydros, or do you remember anything about the specifics of what you got? Did you get any oxy?
I
Because
think
in those days, it was
the very first time I was written a prescription for opiates, it was for Tylenol threes with codeine.
all right.
And God, man, I think I was maybe like 12 at the time,
Yeah,
11 or 12 years old. And yeah, a lot of those injuries that like followed up from them resulted in the same thing. And being so closely involved in the skating community where were a lot of like uh older characters that I hung out with, accessibility without a prescription was pretty easy.
So when you got your first, not necessarily that first, I was laughing because even at the age of 12, I'm thinking about young Brian, and if a doctor gave me T3s, I'd be like, you're not even gonna give me Vicodin, like throw it right back at him. But no, it was like I just, I'm thinking about it. So whenever you had your first strong or moderately strong opioid high, what do you remember about that? Because for me, it was one of the defining moments of my life. Like I knew right in that moment, I had found something that was like probably the most significant thing I had ever experienced in my life. Do you remember anything like that, or was it not that serious seeming to you?
Yeah, I just felt locked in on life. Like it just
Okay.
I uh yeah, I felt like I was in the greatest mood ever, and that like socially like I was loosened up and confident, and um yeah, it was something that obviously I hadn't experienced before, having like a troubled social situation, and like practically no social skills growing up, to all of a sudden feel like uh, an enormous boost in confidence, and also just like overall just feeling actually like good about myself, if that even makes sense. But
Absolutely.
yeah, it was like the first time that I ever really like experienced anything like that uh ever. So it it was obviously like I don't want to call it like an aha moment, but it was definitely something that like imprinted on me almost instantly.
Same here. And again, I don't want to interject too much, but the way I describe it is when I tried opioids, it didn't feel like I was getting high and sort of like altering myself like I would feel when I say got drunk or when I smoked weed, right? That was taking me to someplace else. And I realized that like after a time I would have to come down. Like when I tried opioids for the first time, I felt something corrected. I literally felt like, okay, something is actually, something has been straightened out. Like now I feel the way I imagine I should feel, you know, like now life isn't so, it's not so, the edges aren't so hard and it doesn't feel so not doable, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a again great description.
So it's really just it's crazy looking back on it now how early on I got so into it. You know, I was doing like IV opiate heroin. It was heroin then, and I was doing that by the time I was 15, 16. Which look at kids who are 15, 16 now, and they're like babies, and I'm like, you were absolutely like, you know, what was wrong with you? But it's just the way my life went. So all right, so how long did you got these scripts and you had some availability of these pills through older like skating buddies, right? When did you realize that this is becoming a problem? Like when did you start to think about addiction as like a path you might be going down?
Oh man, I was in so deep at the point that I even like realized that there was uh, a problem. I was so like naive, and I don't want to say undereducated because uh yeah, maybe I just was undereducated because like the first handfuls of times that I was actually like dope sick, I didn't even know what was going on. Like I um like dang, why am I like tossing and turning and like sweating through my sheets at night, and why am I like just like breaking down and crying for no reason at all, and why does everything just like feel so hard? And uh yeah, I didn't even know that that was like a thing for I want to say at least like a few years. I was like maybe 19 or 20 by the time that um I actually had like an actual understanding of like what being sick like fully like looked like and what to expect out of it.
And that's I've heard that from many people that they didn't even realize withdrawal at first when they experienced it. You know, it took a while to make the connection. Even if some of them were aware of what withdrawal was, they didn't connect it to what they were feeling. So for me, I thought I got very sick from like an infection or something from shooting up. You know, it didn't register right away that no, this is because you've been using so much that your body can't function normally without it anymore. So I can totally relate there. And so at some point you switched over to at least partial illegal opioid use, correct? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. By the time that I was like in my 20s, like pills weren't even really like a factor anymore. It was just like straight brown powder or rock that I was like getting off the street. And um yeah, pills would come up like and be like not even really like considered for unless it was like something extremely potent and extremely powerful, because the stuff on the street was just like, you know, after a few weeks or even a few days of using the stuff that's on the street, like crushing up and snorting a pill, or even taking a handful of them, just couldn't even touch like the effects that what was on the streets
Yep, and at that
could do
time
to you.
we were part of the same generation. Heroin was actually heroin. It was high purity powder that you could snort if you wanted to. And I had the same experience. You're not going to do that for a few months and then take a few hydros and not get sick. You know, at that point you're talking about Opana, Dilaudid, and you're talking about banging it probably. You know, because or high dose oxy, although those started going out of vogue when the government clamped down. So I had that same experience, and so I actually didn't know this about your past, but until you mentioned it earlier. But so your addiction is worsening. You're switching to street opioids, and at some point you had some legal consequences, like most addicts do at some point, right? So how did that come about? Was it possession stuff? Was it dealing, shoplifting? Like what happened to get you involved in the legal system?
Oh man, I was in and out for God, man. I think the first time that I got like in trouble for anything, I was like 13, and I had a freaking prescription on me with the label ripped off of it,
Uh,
and I was like with some friends at this park next to this bowling alley that we all used to hang out at on the weekends. Just like this crew of like definitely like some of the misfit kids from the area that I grew up in. I remember I had a tall boy that I was drinking to. There was like five of us sitting at a picnic table, and then like yeah, we just hear this adult male voice like what are you guys doing at the park after dark? And my dumbass, I pulled this bottle out of my pocket and I tried to toss it. And of course, it might as well have been like, throwing a firecracker out in the
Yeah.
field. He's just like, "You're not very smart, are you?" And yeah, I went in handcuffs immediately. And um, luckily enough, I didn't even caught more than just like a community service thing for that, for being out past curfew, because they were able to like track it back that I did have a prescription for it.
Okay.
And I was just like, whatever, freaking out because it didn't have a label on the bottle.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the way up to I've done a few bids in county for getting stopped while intoxicated, driving on like benzos. Like,
Mhm.
really really fortunate that I ended up in handcuffs and not like um T-boning a family or something.
I did
Uh
get in an accident while driving on benzos, by the way. I did almost seriously injure someone. And luckily, I only seriously injured myself. So believe me, I know. Yeah. So
yes, I the the one thing that like really really haunts me about um like alcohol using, like every man, I've been behind the wheel of a car so many times while intoxicated. It's just it's um yeah, it's just crazy and irresponsible. And the guilt that I hold just for doing it, like not even having like hurt somebody, like maybe at worst have like damaged, done like minor property damage. Like I just that guilt complex that I have just for that is pretty heavy.
I feel
Um,
that too. And I've had nightmares, especially when I was coming off of stuff. I've had nightmares where I woke up thinking I had hit someone and killed someone.
yeah, maybe that ties back to like I don't know. I dreamed about these crazy horrific like car accidents too sometimes that are just like um yeah, almost in like slow motion. So
So,
like
yeah.
every single moment of it is just like like every little detail is just, you know times 1,000.
I have a follow-up question if you're okay with that because I have a lot of people who listen to my channel who have direct experience with addiction, but I also have many people who are just interested who don't have addictive issues themselves or don't have family members with addiction issues. And one of the things they say again and again and again, they ask like, how could you not wake up? Like, so in my case, how could you be driving under the influence, hit someone, seriously injure yourself, risk killing them, and not stop using afterward? And I just explained to them, it's a brain disease. If your brain is working properly, it wouldn't be mental illness. Your whole, I talk about like the prefrontal cortex and the executive decision making centers of your brain actually being eroded by long term substance use and addictive use of substances. So structurally, you are literally taking away the parts of your brain that can help you to appreciate risk and act appropriately. But before I go on, all of this to say, like, so you're getting more deep into your addiction. You suffer a series of legal consequences, like almost everybody else who is using illegal drugs does eventually. And were there or is there any particular low point or rock bottom before we go to Palm Partners when you were actually ready to commit to it? Was there any low point or rock bottom moment you remember that really kind of jarred you or that got you thinking differently or made you consider trying to get clean? Like, was there anything like that? Or did you just kind of go through it in the haze that most of us go through active addiction in?
Man, unfortunately, before Palm Partners, I didn't really have like any kind of like a significant rock bottom. In comparison to like what has come afterwards. Um, yeah, that um
But like getting locked up, I mean, for most people, deprivation of freedom is a punishment worse even than physical damage, right? So how did you
Yeah,
think
I mean,
about that the first time
it
that
didn't
happened?
really, it wasn't, I don't know, that just, I feel like uh, the justice system, maybe they didn't do the right thing by putting me through like an intervention program or whatever. Like I went through like an ILC program to avoid having a felony on my record, and I cheesed it, man.
Yeah.
Like I cheesed my whole way through probation. I cheated on drug tests. I skipped community service that hours that somehow just like didn't even get like tracked back to me. I
Mm.
um was like court ordered to AA. I would like just go and have my paper signed and then just like leave or just like put my headphones in during the meeting. Uh and this was all in my early 20s.
Yeah.
When I you can tell me anything, and I just didn't even think that like I had a problem at that point. And like meanwhile I'm like using fake urine to pass drug tests at probation, uh, with risk of like going to jail and having a felony stamped on my record for the rest of my life uh for possession of um illegal substances. And yeah, man, like I did not take any of it seriously at all at that point in my life. And
Mm.
all the way through my 20s up until the point where like I got put on a maintenance program for a little while after that when I was in like my mid 20s. And uh, I don't know, I guess the hard relapse that I had after I got off of maintenance was like a good rock bottom point to like lead up to going to Palm Partners. Like,
That's what I was going to ask. Sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but I was just
that's
going to
okay.
transition
I
to Palm
mean,
Partners because I was going to ask, like, what changed? Like, once we got to Palm Partners, which we can talk about more now if you're okay with that, but once you got there, what made you have the motivation that time? And let me just say,
I was just fear. It was just fear, honestly. It was just I was just like afraid that like the big thing about the South Florida um community, uh when you first step into the recovery community down there, is that um it feels like like you lose a lot of uh support when you relapse. I hate to say it, man, like because the same people will be like, "Oh, relapse is a part of recovery," but like you 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 relapse once, and then all of a sudden, like there's there's some people in the community down there who are like super judgy about it.
definitely. And it was a tight community with young people not on maintenance in recovery from opioid addiction. I haven't found that anywhere else in the world. I mean, everywhere that you go, most people in recovery from opioid addiction are on methadone or buprenorphine. So I love that about South Florida. As you know, I ended up doing like 2 months in Palm Partners inpatient, then coming back to New York and relapsing, which was a terrible decision. But you stayed down there. You had the girl who you were dating
Mm.
at that time, who you were with for years afterward, and you were doing so well. I remember touching base with you from time to time, and I really thought like Michael is going to be the person who gets this. Like he is genuinely going to be the person who just maybe becomes a counselor and just moves on from it and never relapses or anything like that. And of course, I had
Surprise!
distance and optimism on my side and thinking all of that. But could you talk to me a little bit more about like 12 step programs, because I know you were very involved in them, as you've just alluded to. How did you feel about them? Did they help you in your recovery then? And how do you think about them now? You've already touched on those three things, but if you could just tell me a little bit more, anything that comes to mind about 12-step programs.
Yeah, 12 step was awesome. When I first moved down to Florida, like the only meetings that I had gone to one meeting with like serious intentions of like maybe getting something out of it prior to 2014. So like AA was completely new. AA and NA both were like a completely new thing to me. It was like a fresh concept. And yeah, it was great. I went full throttle with it. I made a lot of friends in the program. Did steps with an amazing sponsor. Shout out Harry, if you watch this. And you live around the South Florida area and you want like the most solid group of recovering young men to hang out with and like take you under their wing, that sponsorship family is incredible, and I still keep in touch with a handful of them to current day. Heard from one of them, Danny, just recently, who's in NYC and is like stand-up comedian and
How cool.
just super cool, charismatic guy. He reached out to me recently. Still talk to Harry, my old sponsor, my very first AA sponsor. But yeah, we got into the book. We did 12 steps together. Um, and that was like a good foundation. But I had a lot of extra help outside of AA too. I was in therapy just about the entire time that I lived in Florida for those 5 or 6 years that I was there,
Yeah.
and that was like the cornerstone to me basically. I mean, AA was big, but like therapy was so much bigger for me because uh I don't know. AA could only really scratch the surface for me, where therapy like actually digs deep and like starts pulling out rotted roots and you know skeletons that are deep underground and everything else, and that's the kind of um help that I needed and still need to this day. Take therapy like really really seriously, and also
I
like holistically. I played
yeah.
a lot of disc golf. I got people involved in disc golf who were in the program,
Yeah,
competitively, recreationally. Just being able to be outside and like get a little bit of exercise, fresh air, and also have
definitely.
like a little bit of a competitive edge on things just for fun, is another big thing for me, like mental health wise.
It sounds like, and I think you would agree with me. So Palm Partners ended up getting shut down for billing fraud, for urinalysis fraud, but we both agreed it was actually a strong program, and I think the strength of it came from the fact that it was multimodal. Like, yes, we had 12-step meetings every night, but we also had cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. There was that huge social and diet and exercise component. Like, there was so much. There was a spiritual component if you were inclined in that direction. Remember the sweat lodges and the Kundalini yoga, and you were the one who really like pushed me into trying that stuff. I was very like withdrawn, and if you hadn't been encouraging me, I wouldn't have tried a lot of that stuff. So I appreciated that even then. But yeah, so it sounds like you have a mix of everything, because one of the problems with 12-step programs from my perspective is that they're taking away your coping mechanism, and for most addicts, our coping mechanism is our whole way of dealing with the world is by chemically altering ourselves, right? So you take that away. If you don't give the person new skills, you can send them off in a terrible direction, a direction as bad or worse than in terms of their emotional state active addiction. So like, that's where the therapy comes in to actually give you skills. I wish in 12-step meetings there was more programmatic consideration of mindfulness exercises and breathing techniques and, actual skills that you can use. So not just come to the group and confess that you have a craving, but okay, when you have a craving next time, let's do this CBT exercise to reframe it or whatever works for you. But you
Yeah.
do pick up that stuff in my experience along the way in 12-step meetings, but it's hit or miss because it's not programmatically a part of it. So it's just sort of extra stuff that people who have learned it outside of the program will throw in, if that makes sense. So it sounds to me like you had quite the killer combo going for you there. You had a fresh relationship to with someone from a similar background to stay well for. Like, I'm not surprised you did so well for so long. So how do you feel about 12-step programs today? Would you, so I know you're in touch with some of the people from 12-step groups that you were participating in then, and you're still in touch with them, but would you just walk into a meeting today if you were struggling, or are you over the 12-step thing?
Yeah, I feel like the 12-step program and meetings will always hold uh a considerable amount of usefulness for me in my recovery. Um yeah, there's just um there's there's just a camaraderie that you find in the rooms that you can't really find anywhere else. And I mean, if you look past like all of the cliches and all of the kind of um the usual woes of like AA groups and stuff, it's um it's definitely something to consider if um I feel like as like a piece to the puzzle, like I don't think AA should be like the only solution for anybody. I feel like if you find yourself needing uh something like a 12-step program in order to better your life, then there should be steps that you're taking outside of the 12-step programs also, like therapy or holistic help or there's a lot of different avenues to go down, but I feel like AA should really only just be like a piece of like what what I mean what you're doing regularly.
I think
I
you're
hate how I put that because I feel like I'm like preaching like
No, no,
but
no. I think
that's
that
just what
is
works for
sage
me. So
advice.
I mean,
That's your opinion based on extensive experience and reflection, and I think that is sage advice. If you're putting all your eggs in that basket, it's too much, And as you said, that support can become very conditional if you relapse. Maybe not just the one time, but if you're struggling for an extended period, that support, depending on your sponsor and your home group, that support can evaporate pretty quickly. I've seen it happen. So I think that is spot on, and that it was really well said from, again, just from my own experience with that end of things. And it's that thing from Johan Hari that I say all the time on my channel. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety or being clean. The opposite of addiction is connection. And 12-step programs are, in my opinion, probably the best source of connection and, as you said, camaraderie among recovering people that we have right now. And because of that, I don't ever fault anyone for participating in them wholeheartedly, because it's probably the best thing we have for most people most of the time right now. I hope we find something better because the numbers are not impressive, particularly for the newer generation of opioid addicts. But for now, I totally get it. So thank you for sharing about that, and you said it really well. Now, I hope at some point you'll consider doing a follow-up interview, but before I bring us into the final stretch here, we could do a whole separate talk about, you talked about all the good things about the South Floridian treatment industry, right? And you worked for a time as a residential treatment support specialist kind of position down there, right?
mhm.
But Can we talk
I'm like a
briefly about
property supervisor, basically. It's
there you
kind of
go.
like on both side of things. I had to make sure that the residents were all good, and also like the property and like the vehicles and stuff were all taken care of. So it was a big lot on my plate when I was
It
doing
is.
that.
That's a 24/7 position, and you saw behind the scenes. So talk to me. I've made a whole separate video about corruption in this industry, but talk to me a little bit about the dark side and the shady side, because when I tell the people on my channel that, there were like you can't there were actual human traffickers and mobsters running some of these treatment operations, halfway houses, treatment centers down there. It almost sounds unbelievable, but I have shown them in my videos, like the documents from the attorney general and the federal prosecuting agents. Like, it was wild how dirty and dark it got. So do you have any like just brief things you want to share about instances of corruption that you remember?
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember the first big thing that brought the task force into play. There was like that joint they had like federal agents working with the local police in like taking down um fraudulent or criminal uh ownership or like like figures in sober homes and treatment centers. And like the first thing that happened was like this raid out on a center called Halfway There that was like right down the street from where I was staying at the time. And I had a friend who was staying there who was like going into detail on all of it. Like, I mean, they had feds roll up in an armored truck and just like raid the place, take every paper document, every computer, everything. Just like all of the residents were basically given like 24 to 48 hours to vacate and like find new places to stay and everything. And what like made them act apparently was like uh a young uh man had like overdosed at their sober living home, and the owner tasked either workers or like some of his friends and himself to basically like move the body out of his center.
I
So
remember
that
this
like,
halfway there incident. Yep.
and they dumped him in a motel, and um yeah, it was just so super grimy, like because they allowed using at their sober living home. Like,
Oh, there were some of these places they would literally pay you to relapse. Like, you don't want to be in recovery anymore. Okay, use this money, go get high, and then your urine will be positive, so we can get you back into inpatient, and we'll pay you a kickback for
yeah,
however many days or
exactly.
weeks you spend in inpatient. That was the Florida Shuffle, just endless cycling through intensive residential treatment to halfway house or sober living, and then you just go through and through and through. And tied up with that was some really criminal activity. There were maltreatment professionals who were like looking at the incoming female patients, especially the ones who had red flags in their personal history in terms of abuse of certain types, so that they could traffic them as prostitutes. I mean, there was human trafficking out of these halfway houses, these
There
places where
was
you're supposed to go.
an owner and his wife were actually involved in just doing that. And I mean the big story with that is that I guess this girl had been like locked up in what looked like in an abandoned house, and she was being prostituted out. She managed to escape and somehow ended up like duped into like being kidnapped by this guy. And I mean, just the entire story about it is just absolutely insane. And luckily, this guy is in prison, and so is his wife. Because I mean, these people who are supposed to be helping people who are vulnerable, people who are hurting, I mean, they hurt so many people down in South Florida. And I mean, it's like, so many people got duped, and
Absolutely.
getting on that plane thinking that they're going to go and change their lives, and it's that they walked into an absolute nightmare.
Perfectly said. And this was rampant. Okay, there were treatment centers that only confined themselves to like urinalysis fraud. In other words, billing for urine tests that they didn't need, which is what happened at the facility
Which,
we
you know what,
attended.
the patient doesn't really see that and doesn't really suffer
That's
from
how
that.
I
Like,
felt.
but
And insurance doesn't cover enough time. So if one of the ways that they were getting enough compensation for a given patient was to overbill for urinalysis, I'm not going to fault them that, you know?
she's okay. I'll let her out.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
my doggy wants to go outside.
I
Say hi,
want to
Vega.
talk.
Uh,
What's her name?
Vega. Yeah, she's 8. She's amazing.
I want to talk about your fur babies when we get to this final set of questions. But yeah, it was wild. And like I said, some of that stuff, it didn't hurt the patients directly, but a lot of it did. People were left on the side of the road. People were encouraged to relapse. They were put in entirely unsafe environments that they were told were going to be conducive to recovery and basically set up in the worst way. So again, we could have a whole separate chat about that. I've made videos about the Florida Shuffle if people are interested in that. But yeah, and I want to mention now, and I'll also reiterate at the end of the video that for anyone who wants to follow up with Michael, see how he's doing, he is an incredibly knowledgeable guy, as you can tell, about addiction and mental health. And he's also just a genuine, kind guy who gives good advice. So I'm going to put his YouTube channel and his other social media in the description for this episode. Really encourage you all to follow him and yeah, just keep up with him. So I want to mention that now before I forget. But if you're up for it, I'll move on to my final set of questions about pretty much how you're doing now.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Well, first, shout out to the people in the South Florida recovery community and in all recovery communities who work to expose that kind of behavior and corruption in the industry. Because it's um aside from being a noble act, it's dangerous, man. I mean, there's uh the risk of retaliation from some of these people has, I mean, I've seen instances where uh somebody got their car firebombed. I've I've seen
Compass Detox was shot up. Did you know
bounties put
that?
out on people who
Yeah.
were doing anonymous exposures. I mean, it's just it's yeah. Shout out to the people who were involved in doing that, because I mean, you're you're basically risking your lives to expose um information that's helping people stay out of really bad situations. And
Definitely. And when there's that much money, millions upon, we're talking, Tudor mansion money involved. People get violent. I remember, I don't know if you remember, shortly after we were done at Palm Partners, Compass Detox was shot up. Someone drove by and just shot into the waiting room area. And I heard a
I
couple
never
different
heard about that.
explanations, but yeah, I think they were
Jeez,
saying that
man.
it was like a rival detox trying to shut them down for a while or just a disgruntled patient. I never got the full story, but regardless, that's a waiting area where people came in withdrawal to get treatment and they're like getting shot at. I mean, it's so outrageous. It's like
It
hard to
is wild, man, because like you go, a lot of the people that got involved in the treatment hustle in South Florida were the same people who were in the pill mills.
boom. That's exactly
And
right. The
I mean,
Markovitch
it's
brothers. Yeah,
wild. And yeah,
exactly.
I don't want to take up any more time on that, because yeah,
No,
you're right. We could talk
I
about it
hear you. We could
all
have a whole
day.
other chat about that, which maybe we should. But yeah, let us know in the comments, guys, if you have any experience with treatment industry corruption or what you think about this stuff, because it really is. It was the Wild West. There was so much money involved, and the overt criminal elements ended up controlling a lot of these treatment situations. So, all
Back
right.
up.
So once Michael has his dog back in, we'll move on to just a couple of final questions about how he's doing today and what the future looks like for him and his fiance.
Um, Today, I mean, life is, uh, you know, it's it's life, but I'm really happy with where I'm at. I am still very much involved in my recovery, very heavily. I am undergoing, aside from, you know, I need to get back into therapy. That's my one of my number one goals for 2026 and the year moving forward. Um, but utilizing maintenance program locally, which has been great. Still involved with an enormous and amazing network of recovering individuals that I've met over the years from, I mean, all over the world. And uh, yeah, I'm engaged. I just got engaged in June.
Congrats.
And we are planning something super fun, like a Halloween costume party for a wedding. And Samantha is just absolutely amazing. She's my world, and we have a whole menagerie of like rescue animals that we care for at home, and that's kind of a big passion for both of us. We both absolutely love animals. We both absolutely love nature, and um, yeah, still playing a little, not as much as I used to, but still very much involved in disc golf. Not really on the competitive side these days. Just really go out and play just for a little bit of recreational activity. I did try to get back into skating recently, which was like a one and done type thing. My body just, yeah, it's getting old and kind of stiff, so I just can't move like I used to in order to do that type of stuff. But yeah, and have a great career blossoming here, working for a local union, which I'm I couldn't be any happier about. But yeah, yeah, life's pretty awesome and chill right now.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like you have every reason to be hopeful. And I remember I touched base with you maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and you had had a relapse, and you were using Trank, which has infiltrated almost all of the the dope supply in the U.S. And I actually have a picture on my blog of you with the lesions from Trank on your legs that you sent me. And yeah, I was so worried about you then, and to see you now, it's just like it's
I'm
awesome.
lucky. I'm blessed. I'm
Yeah.
very fortunate
And Samantha sounds
because
awesome.
there's we've got a lot of friends who uh we can't say are as fortunate, unfortunately.
Yeah. Your best
It,
friend from who absolutely was the way he talked about you, you really mattered so much to him. But our friend Zach, from who we met in Palm Partners, who Michael was best friends with, he passed away. And I think you mentioned that you still talk to his mom sometimes. Is that right?
yeah, not super duper regularly, but we always talk on holidays. Um, it seems like that's like a regular time for us to be in touch, like especially around like Thanksgiving and Christmas time. And it's just it's cool. We never actually like met while Zach was uh still alive,
Mhm.
and um yeah, it just I reached out and sent her just like some pictures of the times that we had spent together, and like a really cute video of like Zach playing with like a squirrel that I had rescued. And it's blossomed into like a really cool relationship. And she's just a really awesome lady, and we like even exchanged like music taste and stuff, because Zach got a lot of his music, um like reggae and like islander type music that he was into, was like a taste that he developed from his mom. um and yeah, she's just a really cool lady. She reminds me of like the saying, like living life on like island time.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she's just really laid back and um, just a really sweet, gentle person.
Zach was like that too. I can see, maybe where it came from. So sad he's not here with us. And, say it all the time on my channel, there are a million people, a million Americans dead of overdose, the vast majority of which were opioid overdoses since the year 2000. So if you can imagine a million Mikes and Brians and Zachs, like, who didn't make it, we're here as the survivors and we're actually in the minority, it feels
Yeah.
like.
And Zach wanted it so bad too. I mean, he wanted to just be able to have like a normal life outside of, you know, the pain and misery of addiction. And man, I would give anything to go back and let, you know, I'd give anything to have that available for anyone who wants it. I mean, it's just,
You know what? You were an awesome friend to him while he was here. You're talking to his mom now, and I can't imagine how much relief that would give him if he could know that. You've done everything that you possibly could. So, I'm sorry to end on that note, although it's actually a beautiful thing and it says a lot about you that you're in touch with his mom, from time to time. And again, Michael, thank you so much for doing this. I really hope that we can have a follow-up interview. And again, I'm going to list your social media in the description so that everyone can follow you and keep up to date with how you're doing. Okay?
cool. Sounds
All
good.
right,
Thanks
my
for this,
friend.
Brian. This was awesome.
All right, I'll catch you.
Yep. Bye, viewers.